You are listening to Peak One Sports.
All right, what is up, everyone? Welcome to this week's episode of the Sports Page. I am Dan Boyer, aka Neon Super Shrimp, and welcome. I think I'm doing another solo episode this week. Everybody gets a little busy. Life happens, no big deal. But hopefully everybody can make it back soon, and we can kind of continue our group discussions. Going on in the future. But in the meantime, I'm here to talk a few sports, mostly, North Texas stuff, Rangers, Cowboys, that kind of thing. But there's a couple other little topics in here along the way that I think are also fun / interesting. So feel free to shout out your thoughts and opinions along the way and let us know what you think. If you agree or disagree, have your own thoughts. Don't forget to like and subscribe to Peak One Sports on all social media platforms, and find us wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts under the same name. But just before we kick off, we'll shout out one of our partners and sponsors here real quick, Betalytics. Don't bet with your gut. The Betalytics dashboards allow you to quickly identify the top-graded best bets and hottest trends. Betalytics uses AI machines to learn algorithms and create accurate game simulations, player prop projections, betting line evaluations, and best bet recommendations. Visit Betalytics.com and use promo code PEAK1 for 25% off when you sign up today. And shout out to Roscoe from the Roscoe Fantasy Show, man. He had a couple of wagers on Sunday that were really, really close. I think one of them he needed like 6 yards out of a running back and like one more reception for a receiver. That would have paid out a nice amount. But yeah, man, that was a crazy close one. That one wasn't even my bet, but it hurt a little bit to watch. He was so close. But yeah, so shout out Betalytics, and make sure you don't bet with your gut. Use Betalytics. Promo code PEAK1. Get 25% off. So yeah. First thing I kind of wanted to jump into and talk about tonight. Well, first off, happy National Cheeseburger Day. Hey, what's up, Ross? What's going on, buddy? Literally just talking about you and the bets that you were making last week. How crazy close you were. But yeah, shout out to Betalytics. Check them out. Help you get your bets right. Hopefully win some money. It's the best part about fantasy football and football season in general. I like to do all the parlays and the wagers and the bets just to kind of make things a little more interesting. It's fun. First thing I kind of wanted to talk about was just Texas Rangers. Unfortunately, I think it's pretty safe to say, I think I was looking at it. I don't think it's impossible for the Rangers to make the playoffs, but it's like highly improbable because I think we would need the Brewers are, as it stands, they're kind of like in that last wild card spot. We would need them to lose every game remaining, and we would have to win every game remaining just to like match that record and possibly squeeze in. But I don't think it's going to happen. It's highly unlikely. Rangers are playing a game right now. We did win last night. In the middle of this game right now, the Rangers need to win 9 out of the next 11 games, or their final 11 games, in order to have a winning record, and I think that would just put them at 500. If they don't, they will be the first defending champions to finish with a losing record since the 2014 Red Sox. And I was saying this kind of last week, but like And I was talking about it with a few people when I was just talking about the Rangers, and it's always like extremely like disappointing, I guess, to win the championship, go all the way, you know, bring home the hardware, and then the next season you don't even make the playoffs. Like it's such a negative turnaround between like your championship and coming back, and especially when there really wasn't a whole lot of like roster change for this Ranger team. Uh, Wyatt Langford, I actually think was like a really great addition. He actually played really well. Talk about him in just a little bit, but I mean, it's kind of disappointing. But as I was like thinking about it and everything, the Rangers, they were obviously better last year than they were this year. The Rangers finished 90-72. But I think it's important to remember too that the Rangers last year like barely squeaked into the playoffs. Like we went on that win streak in the last week of the season and managed to get into the playoffs, and then from there it was literally just kind of a get hot stay hot situation, and the Rangers just rolled through the playoffs and into a world championship, a World Series game, or series, and again staying hot, managed to win that series and win a national, or win the World Series. So I guess like as disappointing as this season is ultimately, because the but hopefully the Rangers will do better next year. I'm already kind of disappointed that we're not going to make the playoffs like at all, um, which is disappointing. I think I was even saying to like Ashton and Tony that like it would be nice if even the Rangers managed to make the playoffs and then just like lost in that first round. I would feel better about that than them just absolutely, missing the whole thing. Oh, I absolutely agree, Russ. And don't get me wrong, because I'm not trying to take the championship away from the Rangers. You'll have to pry it from my cold dead hands. I am super psyched that we managed to win this World Series. Um, but like I don't know. I guess I kind of go back and forth on it. There were a lot of injuries that the Rangers dealt with this season. Um, DeGrom just returned last week, which was probably at least a full month later than what the Rangers were anticipating, coming off of his Tommy John surgery. Scherzer suffered a few injuries. He returned on Saturday, and Seattle just kind of blew up his return. 4 innings pitched, 5 hits, 2 runs, 2 walks, 2 strikeouts, and he gave up a home run. Um, you know, I was just kind of looking at these injuries too. So Seager has been diagnosed with a sports hernia just on Friday, so he's about to have season-ending surgery. So like even if we were to make a push and manage to get into the playoffs, but I the way it stands right now, I think the Rangers are going to end up finishing the season with a losing record, and I don't know. It's disappointing because I don't necessarily feel like it's indicative of this Rangers team, this roster that we have. Enough injuries and everything kind of, I think, affected the way our season obviously turned out, and I'd like to think that you know the powers that be, the higher ups within the Rangers organization, kind of thought there would be a possibility at making a late push in August and September, provided, injuries and players kind of come back and everything, but just none of that happened. And so ultimately you ended up with, the exact kind of position that the Rangers have been in. Um, I can't, I don't know. I'm definitely disappointed in the season. There's always next year. We'll talk about some of the playoff teams and who I'm kind of rooting for, I guess. Um, but I did want to talk about a few players and everything kind of going on. Um, Aaron Judge. Now that I'm thinking about it, I have to look him up. Let's see. Aaron Judge, 53 home runs. I believe it's probably right about 10 games left. So the odds of him actually hitting 60 home runs this year pretty slim. Um, but I mean, I've seen stranger things happen in sports. The man could hit 3 home runs one night and still have half a dozen games left. So I've seen anything could happen, but it doesn't seem like he's going to hit that 60 mark this season. The one I'm really rooting for right now, with just a little over a week of baseball in the regular season left, Ohtani has 49 stolen bases and 48 home runs. It'd be really cool to see him hit 50-50, just as like the first player to ever do it. I believe I was talking to Ashton about Ohtani being the first player to ever hit 48 home runs, 48 stolen bases in a single season. He was the fastest to get to 35, I think. And I think he was the fastest to get to 40. And now we're just kind of in uncharted territory. And I think it's pretty incredible to see the level of talent that this kid has for the game, especially considering that he's coming off of, I believe, Tommy John surgery. And so he hasn't like really thrown or pitched at all this year. And I mean, I think he made a pretty conscious decision knowing that he was coming into this season. He wasn't going to pitch. He wasn't going to field. And so I think he made a pretty conscious decision that for what he was after, I don't think he expected to try and, be this close to 50-50, but I'd like to think that at the beginning of the season, maybe he was thinking about it, 44 was his mark, and then when he hits it in early August, now he's just kind of, able to make his name last forever in the history books. I think it's pretty incredible to be able to see players like this that haven't done things like that haven't been in baseball in like 100 years. Aaron Judge getting as close as he has been to the home run records, Ohtani doing what he's doing with these 40-40 records, or the possibility of this 50-50 would be amazing. I would absolutely love to see that. He's one stolen base away from 50 and he's 2 home runs away from 50. So I mean, he's got I think everybody's got about 10 games left. I think after today there's like 10 games left for just about everybody. I'm also basing that off of, like, I know that's what the Rangers have left after today's game with the Blue Jays. 10 games remaining. I know we're getting ready to play a 3-game series against Seattle again, and then I believe we play the Athletics and the Angels to close out the season. Those last 2 opponents, I might mix them up, but kind of the last thing I wanted to talk about, just because I think he's been a lot of fun to watch this year. It hasn't been the greatest season for the Rangers, but I've definitely been trying to like hunt and find his rookie card because I want to get my hands on it. Wyatt Langford finishes this season batting .254. He's got a .405 slugging percentage and a .324 on base percentage. 12 home runs, triples, 25 doubles. I mean, not a bad season for this kid, especially for a kid that was like called up a lot sooner than I think even he was anticipating, and he has definitely been like a contributing factor to this Ranger offense. I don't think you can be too upset this performance through this season. I mean, I feel like you'd say like it could have been better had some of his teammates been playing a little bit better, or if maybe, I don't know, maybe they won more games and whatever. But as far as I feel like his individual contributions based on like his stat line and everything, it's been a good season. It's a lot of fun to watch this kid play, and I'm really glad he's a Ranger. I hope he sticks around for a while. We'll see what happens in the off season and what the Rangers decide to do as far as pitching personnel and like our starters and aces. I mean, I'd like to think that like DeGrom and Scherzer have another season or two in them where they could be, not necessarily like their peak, but still be like very good starting pitchers and get a win record out of those guys and see what we decide to do as far as like our relief guys. And I want to say there's a couple of contracts. I want to say Adolis Garcia is like on his final year or something of a contract. I'm not positive. I didn't look too much at that stuff, but hard to say that it wasn't like a disappointing season out of the Rangers. I do think it's terribly ironic that the beginning of last season, I don't think anybody necessarily had any high expectations for the Rangers. Then August and September roll around, Rangers get pretty hot, roll to the playoffs, just hotter than any team in the playoffs at that time. Steamroll over everybody. I believe undefeated on the road. Just incredible post-game season for Rangers last year, and then show up coming into this season, and I think there were a lot of high expectations for it, and the Rangers definitely kind of fizzled and fell flat a bit. So there's always next year. I hate saying it like that, especially when it's not even October yet. But speaking of October, as far as the playoff picture goes, I've got 7 teams here. There's obviously a couple more teams that are kind of slugging it out to fill in the last couple of wild card spots. But I've got Dodgers, the Brewers, and the Phillies in NL, and then you got the Yankees, the Orioles, the Guardians in the AL, and it looks like the Astros are going to take one of those wild card spots. As far as the AL goes, I'm kind of rooting for the Orioles. I'm going to see if I can Google it real quick, but I don't really remember the last time the Orioles. Okay, so 83. Yeah. So I'm always down to kind of root for the underdogs and the guys that haven't been there in a long time. I wouldn't mind seeing the Orioles get after it. I have a hard time rooting for the Yankees. I like the history that's involved with the Yankees and the Red Sox, but man, I feel like there's enough like rivalry, and I've said this a lot, but I feel like I hate the Yankees for the same reason that like a lot of people don't like the Cowboys. It's kind of a money thing. It's a bravado kind of ego type thing that goes along with it too. So I have a hard time rooting for the Yankees. I love the history of the Yankees and everything, and then I can't root for the Astros either, since Trashgate and everything. And to be honest, I will always be bitter that the Astros managed to bring the first World Series victory, World Series trophy to Texas over the Rangers. That's always going to rub me the wrong way. It's always going to make me really bitter. So I can't root for the Astros. I can't root for the Yankees. As far as the AL goes, I think I'm going to root for the Orioles. They seem like a good underdog. See what happens with them. I've also said that I kind of like the Brewers. I think they've got one of the cooler logos in baseball with their MB that makes a fielding glove, a baseball glove. I think that's really cool. But I have a hard time rooting against the Dodgers right now. I'm sure if they were to go on a real win streak and win a couple of World Series or something like that, I might start rooting against them. But for everything that Shohei Ohtani's been doing in baseball with the Dodgers and everything up to this point, I have a hard time kind of rooting against them. I'm probably rooting more for Shohei Ohtani just to see him, break more records and do more things in baseball that, haven't been done in such a long time. But But yeah, so my NL team, I'm taking the Dodgers. I think. I'm also kind of rooting for the Brewers, and then Orioles for the AL. But we'll see what happens. There's like I said, there's obviously a little more than a week left of baseball, about 10 games or so around the league, and they'll start kind of filling out those final wild card spots and everything. I don't think anything's like locked in just yet. I do think like the Yankees, the Orioles, the Guardians, the Dodgers, the Brewers, the Phillies, uh, they might actually be far enough ahead in their division, I guess. I'm trying to look it up real quick if I can. I got to do this the hard way, but they might be far enough ahead. Yeah, Yankees over the Orioles right now, and then yeah, most of these teams are all leading their divisions by 5+ games. I guess the Dodgers only have a 3-game lead, but I think unless something crazy happens, most of these teams are gonna be in. Well, actually, it looks like the Brewers are the only ones that have actually clinched their division so far. But yeah, as it stands right now, it looks like these will be the guys. So, but I definitely agree with Ross here. Anyone but the Yankees. Anyone but the Yankees and the Astros. Those are my two bugaboos. I can't do either team. Plus, I don't know. It's got to be like the same thing that irks people about the Cowboys, right? It's like I don't want to see a bunch more Yankees and Red Sox championships. Like I want to see the other guys win. Let's see here. I think we're gonna get into a little bit of college football. I don't have a whole lot to talk about on the college football front, but before we get into them, we'll shout out our other great partner, the Dapper Dog Academy. Say goodbye to unruly behavior and hello to a well-mannered pup. Owner trainer Korri Bennett has nearly 10 years experience helping your canine companions become the best version of themselves. With personalized training programs tailored to fit your pup's unique personality and needs, Korri is committed to helping your best friends reach their full potential. Contact Korri and the Dapper Dog Academy on Facebook and book a consultation today. I believe the link and phone number and stuff is all in the description below as well. So check them out. She's fantastic. We've gone over and helped Ashton with his lab puppy, and she's awesome. Check it out. Lots of good stuff kind of posted on her Facebook too. She likes to kind of keep her clients knowing what's going on, right? But yeah, Ross, totally. This was the first thing I actually kind of wanted to talk about a little bit because I thought it was a little bit funny. But Texas is ranked number 1 as far as the AP top 25 goes. But the coaches poll still has Georgia number 1 and Texas number 2, which I think is funny because I believe it was last week I was talking about how the AP poll put Texas at number 2, but the coaches poll left Texas at number 3 behind Ohio State. So, and I honestly thought that after this last week, especially with Georgia's just I don't even know what to call this, this 13-12 win over Kentucky, kind of felt like Georgia should drop from number 1 to at least number 2 behind Texas, because Texas didn't have a showing like this, Now, I'm also willing to concede it was UTSA. They're not like a powerhouse football program or anything like that. Although I have worked with the athletic director that helped establish that football program out there, and they're very proud of it. And they, they love playing football down there. Now they've got their stadium and built and everything. It's a good school. it's not a bad program, but it's hard to see them really keeping up against a team like Texas, especially a team like this Texas team. So I mean, as soon as Georgia lost that game, I was like, there's no way, or sorry, Georgia won that game. I was like, there's no way Georgia stays number one after a 13-12 win over Kentucky. Texas has to be number one. But I mean, the coaches poll does not agree. Coaches poll still has them number two under Georgia, but now they're over Ohio State because they had them at number three last week, under Ohio State. So I think that one's really interesting. I don't understand how they come up with that. It seems pretty obvious to me, like through these first, it's 3 weeks, right? That just, I don't know. It just, I don't understand like the math, I guess, that's involved in. Yeah. So, sorry, I'm also trying to. Yeah, 3 weeks. Okay. And then Texas is getting ready to play University of Louisiana Monroe coming up, which I don't expect to be a huge issue. The other day I was kind of looking at the strength of schedule as far as like what Texas is kind of headed up against in the coming weeks, and it doesn't feel like the strongest or hardest schedule, University of Louisiana Monroe coming up this Saturday. The week after that, Mississippi State, and then I think, is it 2 weeks after that? Yeah, then they have like a bye week, and on the 12th, it's the Red River rivalry, and then Georgia, and those two games will be great tests of this Texas team. I mean, I feel like I always want to say, especially with Texas like ranked number 1 right now, Oklahoma's number 15, and there's obviously a few weeks between here and there. I'd like to say going into that game, Texas should absolutely roll over the Sooners. But if there's anything that I've learned in my lifetime of being a Longhorns fan and everything right now, it's that Red River rivalry, that Red River shootout, whatever you want to call that rivalry game, is anyone's game at any point in time, right? The fan turnout for the game is immense, considering that it is right in the middle of the two schools. The state fair being there as well, like the energy, just everything that goes on in that stadium on that day for that game is next level. It's incredible. And it's literally anybody's game. I feel like I've seen unranked Oklahoma or unranked Texas upset a ranked other team. So as good as I feel like Texas is so far and everything, a lot of these opponents just haven't been like the strongest opponents so far. We did beat number 10 Michigan that second week, but that Michigan team that they put on the field was not the championship Michigan team that was on the field 8 months ago. It just it was not the same team. So many players graduated and moved on to the NFL and whatever. So I don't know, as high ranked as they were, as far as Texas opponents up to that point, I just don't know how much of an actual test I feel like it really is or was. And this Oklahoma game coming up in a few weeks, I think will be kind of the first really great test of that, and then Georgia following that up, and then I think it's pretty much like SEC matchups the rest of the season after we play Monroe. Is Mississippi State SEC? I can never remember. Yeah, they are, right? Yeah. So yeah, after Louisiana Monroe, I think every game, the last what is this, 6, 8 games, the last 8 games of the season are all going to be, SEC conference games. And so kind of to quote one of the high school coaches we were talking to out here just before his game last week, he was telling us going into their first district game, being 2-0 to that point is great, but it really just doesn't matter once you start going up against these district teams and having the district games and the district matchups, because you can be 2-0, but it doesn't mean anything once you start those district games. So you got to win those games. They're a little more important. They're a little more weighted and everything. Slight conversation, I guess. I was going to talk about TCU, go Frogs, but they definitely just the wheels kind of came off for the Frogs in that second half against UCF, and UCF managed to score. If I remember correctly, I think TCU only managed to score a field goal in the second half. Definitely just not enough to hold off Central Florida. Disappointing, but I don't anticipate TCU being like a ranked team or anything this season. I definitely don't expect or anticipate them being like a top 12 team and trying to make a playoff run by any means. I would anticipate that they'll probably do well enough to get a decent bowl bid, but that'll all kind of just depend on how the rest of the conference goes. See if I can look it up real quick, but I think all right. Yeah. So it looks like TCU and the UCF Knights are the only like two Big 12 teams to have faced off so far. So TCU's 0-1, and that puts them in last place in the Big 12. I'm sure that will change after this weekend. There's a few TCU, or not TCU, but Big 12 matchups coming up. And well, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I'm not even sure if this is no, it's not. But anyway, yeah. So TCU being last in their conference, it's only been the first game. We'll see what happens. Continuing on, it's a big conference. Plenty of games left to be played this season. TCU faces off on Saturday, I believe it is, against SMU in the battle for the Iron Skillet, which is kind of one of my favorite like rivalry type games. Like it's got that fun kind of silly trophy that you're fighting over. I'm trying to remember because I know Texas has a game where they play for like the Golden Hat, things like that. But the Iron Skillet, I think that one's just like, it's a really fun kind of trophy. So I will definitely be watching that one. They're playing in Dallas at SMU. So we'll see what happens, but pretty fun game, good rivalry. I think TCU's won the last 2 years in a row. I want to say it was like my senior year at TCU, or my last semester at TCU, and SMU had upset us, but I can't quite remember if that was the last time that SMU won or not. So but anyway, so a couple other Big 12 matchups. You got number 12 Utah versus number 14 Oklahoma State. Should be a pretty good matchup. I mean, really, my big comment here is that like now that we're kind of through the first, few weeks of college football, I personally think, my opinion, I guess, is that the matchups start to get a lot better. You start to have a lot more kind of ranked schools playing each other. You definitely start to have a lot more uh, conference games, division games, whatever. Um, so the games tend to have a little more weight to them versus like that first week, where TCU plays. Well, I guess TCU played Stanford that week one, but like last week they played Long Island. Texas plays. You get what I'm saying though. Like all those pretty easy games, and everything starts to shape up better. A couple of Big Ten matchups. Got number 24 Illinois versus number 22 Nebraska, which has been really funny to watch because the Nebraska quarterback has got like a very Patrick Mahomes thing going on, and I almost have to assume that it seems like he has to be doing it on purpose. Like all of his pregame ritual stuff is all like Pat Mahomes. It's not even Pat Mahomes-esque. It's exactly what Pat Mahomes does. And then he's got like the haircut and the goatee or whatever, and it's really pretty funny. But I mean, whatever works for him, and he seems to be playing really well. So like if he's just trying to like adopt the mannerisms and styles of a great quarterback or a generational quarterback. I can't imagine a better quarterback to try and do that off of than, or more than Pat Mahomes. So number 11 USC versus number 18 Michigan. Also, another one of these Big Ten matchups. That one should be really good. I'm excited to see that one. This would be an actual opportunity for Michigan to kind of strike back and reestablish themselves as like a better program than what they really are. I definitely think that Michigan is struggling a bit though, considering like all the players that they're missing after graduating and joining the NFL draft and moving on to bigger and better things, and then Coach Harbaugh leaving the program and everything. I don't think it puts Michigan in like such a dire position that like they're not going to be able to win football games, but I do think it puts them in a more difficult position as far as their ability to land inside the top 12 and hopefully make it to the playoffs for a national championship shot. Even if they manage to make it into that playoff bracket, I can't necessarily say if I think they'll make it very far. But this game against number 11 USC, I think will be like a very, very good game. It'll be a very good test of kind of figuring out exactly like what Michigan is kind of capable of the rest of the season. And then I only wrote down one SEC matchup that it was the only ranked one that I happened to notice anyway. Number 6 Tennessee takes on number 15 Oklahoma. I will always root for whoever is playing against Oklahoma. As a Texas fan, I can't stand Oklahoma. I remember when I was taking a government class in San Antonio, and my professor was actually a city manager for one of the local cities. Really cool guy, and he kind of always had this running joke of he would ask the class like, what do Texans hate the most? And the answer was always like regulations and restrictions. And the Red River rivalry was coming up, and he asked the class like, and what did Texans hate more than anything? And I was like, Oklahoma. It's definitely Oklahoma. But yeah, so I will literally root for anybody that's playing against Oklahoma. Tennessee, do your worst. Let's see you just tear down Oklahoma. And to be honest too, I think it'll be a good test and a good chance to get an idea of like where Oklahoma is as far as when the Red River rivalry comes around in a few weeks, in a few games. How how tough that team may or may not be coming up against the Longhorns. But rewind it back to Texas just a little bit because I did want to talk about this, and I happen to have it at the bottom of my page here, and I kind of forgot about it. But as I was doing some of my research as far as Texas goes, I feel like this offense has been just a lot of fun to watch. They're incredibly potent. They've definitely got the ability to just break off like very big plays in a lot of different ways. And I mean, I think Quinn Ewers is a huge part of that, but the fact that Arch Manning is the backup quarterback doesn't hurt that by any means. And I think we got a taste of that when Quinn Ewers went out in the second quarter, I believe it was, with the abdominal strain. Now, in my kind of research of doing all of this and everything, I actually came to find out that Quinn Ewers was the quarterback for South Lake Carroll here in North Texas, North Fort Worth. So shout out to the Carroll Dragons. I didn't realize that he was kind of from the area, but getting his abdominal strain, not like a huge injury, not like a damning injury, one that should keep him out. I don't think it'll keep him out for very long if he misses really any additional time at all. I think it really just kind of depends on the grade of the strain, and I wasn't really able to find anything about that, so I almost assume that it's a pretty mild, minor strain. I would expect he's going to be back with all the hype talk and everything of Quinn Ewers kind of being the next Heisman winner, at the very least in New York for the Heisman ceremony. I don't anticipate him like missing a lot of time, and his talent, his contribution to this offense is great. All of that being said, after Arch Manning stepped in that game against UTSA last week and did what he did, the 67-yard touchdown run, Arch Manning topped out. It was just under 21 miles an hour. I want to say I saw it was like 20.7 or something like that miles per hour, but 21 miles per hour, and the longest touchdown run by a quarterback since Vince Young in 2005 when he broke off an 80-yard run against Oklahoma State. But Arch Manning looked good in this game. 9 for 12, 223 yards, 4 touchdowns, not including the rushing touchdown that he got off that 67-yard scramble. Because of this and the fact that their next opponent is Louisiana Monroe, I wouldn't necessarily be too surprised if Ewers sits out for like 1 week, or at least 1 week, because I think you can take advantage of like him healing and being prepared for the Oklahoma game that's coming up, 3 weeks later. I think you can take advantage of getting some experience reps for Arch Manning. I think this isn't like a bad thing for the Longhorns at all. And I don't think there's necessarily like a quarterback controversy here, because I think even if you let Ewers have a week off and you let Arch Manning play next week against Louisiana Monroe, you're still planning to bring Ewers back. He's still like your Heisman candidate starting quarterback. He's still like your senior. He's earned it. He's playing great. There's no reason to like not play him. And that Arch Manning helps you to like secure a good future for this Longhorn team going forward. So I think there's a number of different ways that the Longhorns could try and handle this situation, as far as do you play Ewers next week? Do you sit him? Do you even do like a quarterback by committee thing, which I'm not a fan of by any means, but I suppose if they wanted to like limit reps or something like that for him, maybe he only plays a half or something like that. I don't know. But I feel like there's a lot of ways that Texas could handle this going forward that definitely still keeps them like very safely at number 1 in that winning position, continue winning games. I don't think I'm trying to remember again. Let's see if I can bring it up, because they're playing Monroe, yeah, and then it's Mississippi State. So I almost think, as I'm kind of thinking out loud about it here, the possibility of Texas letting Ewers rest against the Louisiana Monroe team and saving him to come back against Mississippi State, who's been playing, I mean, fairly well. Um, just I think it puts you in a better position to make sure that Ewers is 100% healthy, and you head into your first conference game in kind of the best possible position. Then you get that week off before you go take on the Sooners in the Cotton Bowl for the Red River rivalry. I also don't necessarily, I mean, if Ewers is, only got like a minor injury and he's feeling it and he wants to play against Louisiana, I don't necessarily see anything crazy happening there either. So we'll see what happens. Obviously, Texas playing on Saturday. Yeah, Saturday at 7 p.m. So the Saturday night game. But yeah, keep charging forward, Longhorns. I said it just before the season started. Longhorns going to win a national championship this year. I think they've got a really good chance at doing it. Their offense is incredible. Their defense has been playing pretty well as well. So I mean, I think it's only going to get better from here for the Longhorns. So keep an eye on that. I honestly, as far as it goes right now, I think the Longhorns are easily probably the best, at least the best offensive team in college football right now. So yeah, so we'll definitely keep watching that. We'll keep talking about that over the weeks and everything. But yeah, we'll move our way over to NFL. I've got a few things I want to talk about on that side, but just before we do, if you're looking for a superior energy drink to replace your inferior caffeinated beverages, Debbie contains 0 maltodextrin, 0 fillers, 0 artificial colors or dyes, and 0 proprietary blends. It's the coffee fruit extract that's the star of this beverage, helping you focus and energize without jitters or crash. Order Debbie today using code PEAK1 and enjoy 10% off your order today. I really like this. I'm still drinking Galaxy Grenade is what I'm trying. They've also got if you're not sure, you want to try it out, they've got a what's it called, like a sampler pack that you can try, and it comes with a shaker, like this blue one that I got up here, and they got and then it comes with I think it's like 3 of their energy drink flavors, and then it comes with 2 or 3 of their hydration electrolyte drink type things. So yeah, check them out. W code PEAK1, 10% off. Enjoy. So the first thing I want to talk about, I want to get into the Cowboys. My first reaction watching Dak throw 2 interceptions and spark absolutely 0 leadership out of his offense was this is the guy we're paying $60 million a year. And I don't get it. I stand by what I had been saying kind of all along as we headed up to the beginning of the season and Dak getting his contract, which in all honesty, I was saying when they gave Dak Prescott that contract Sunday morning, like an hour before the noon games, I want to say it was 11 a.m. They gave him the contract that he was looking for. That was planned. Jerry and whoever else at the Cowboys, they did that on purpose. They knew they were going to give him that contract that day. And why they didn't give it to him sooner, why they decided to do it that way, it makes no sense to me. But there's no way that they didn't know that they were going to give him that contract that morning before that first game. And it literally tells me or shows me that what an incredibly weak position to show yourself in. It was ridiculous because, like, don't get it twisted. I think Dak Prescott actually had all the leverage in that situation. The Cowboys don't exactly have a replacement answer for Dak Prescott. Even if they were to go and try and draft somebody this season or in this next draft, I don't believe that it's going to be a very quarterback heavy draft class. It's not a very talented quarterback draft class. So I don't exactly know who they think they would like who the Cowboys necessarily think that they would manage to bring in here. And especially to replace Dak Prescott. I'm not a fan of rookie quarterbacks at all anyway, because they aren't usually very successful in their first season or two, especially if they have to come in and be like the guy, for their team. And then you talk about like such a high profile team like the Cowboys, where like being the quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys is a celebrity status, like everybody knows. And I mean, let's not forget that like being the quarterback for any team in the NFL is like noteworthy, and people kind of know who you are because there's only 32 of them. There's only one starting quarterback on every football team in the NFL. But like now, like I don't get it. I feel like you could have waited until mid-season and let Dak establish himself as a top quarterback, like again. I mean, because he's coming off of a record season. He's a career season, like he's never played that well. And guys coming off of career seasons tend to command like top dollar in their contracts after that, right? But it just doesn't make a lot of sense to me when his resume says he's 2-5 in the playoffs and he's never gotten you where you actually want to go. Why you pay this guy like number one top dollar for his position? I don't get it. And then you go and you have a game like this. I feel like when you look at the line like this, Dak was 27 for 39, which is actually 69% completion rating, 293 yards, a touchdown, and 2 interceptions. But Dak threw 39 pass attempts because they were so far down in that game from like the get-go, from the first quarter. And the 2 interceptions were a huge part of that swing, because I don't think Derek Carr scored another touchdown in the second half. I think he had 3 in the first, and I think they had a pick 6. Now, as much as I want to like just blame Dak Prescott on this whole thing and whatever, and I believe that like his numbers, his stat line here for this game is padded considerably, considering that like he just got to like throw the ball a bunch, and like we had to because we were so far behind. And then by the time the fourth quarter came, we pulled all our starters anyway. It was so embarrassing, right? Like just the show, 44-19 loss. It was like 31-3 or 31-7, something like that in like that halftime. It was ridiculous. But again, as much as like I want to like blame Dak for like, I don't know, not bringing any kind of spark, not bringing any kind of leadership to this offense and like getting something going. And I've got some other things to complain about as far as that goes as well. We'll just keep talking about the offense and then I'll move on to the defense. But, 39 pass attempts, right? 27 completions. And CeeDee Lamb has 4 catches, 4 receptions. All right. I did the math on it. The 39 pass attempts and 7 targets that CeeDee Lamb gets is only 5.5%. And that just does not compute for me when a guy like a rookie Tolbert had I think 9 targets and 6 receptions. And then I think the tight end Ferguson was like 6 for 6. Then there are a few other people kind of scattered in there that each have like 1 or 2 receptions. But you're talking about like the 3 top guys that are getting receptions in this game, and CeeDee Lamb is like not number one. He's not number one in targets. He's not number one in receptions. He had 90 yards, and the majority of that came from the 65-yard bomb that he managed to score the touchdown on. This feels like CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott both just got paid, and I don't understand what's going on the field between the two of them. Now, a big part of that could, in fact, come from CeeDee Lamb's holdout and his not, being at, preseason practices and things like that. But I can't imagine that's all of it, I don't know. I was definitely saying after that week 1 game, like everybody just kind of hold your horses. This was the Cleveland Browns. It was Deshaun Watson, had just fear in his eyes the entire game. He was getting lit up constantly. I think Micah Parsons had like 9 hurries or something like that and a sack. So, like defense played really, really well in that game. Our offense looked pretty good. But, I was trying to make sure everybody was, tapering their expectations because, this week going into the New Orleans game, it was going to be a lot tougher, a lot better of a test as far as, where the Cowboys really are. And man, they lit us up. The number of like explosive big plays that they executed against this defense has me like terrified going forward against any competent offense. The Browns obviously weren't able to get anything going because they don't have anybody. Like who's on their offense that's getting anything going? I think in my fantasy team I played forward against the Cowboys, but that's because the Cowboys are always pretty much good to give up probably like 80 to 100 yards to a running back who's just kind of running up the middle, but they're not necessarily like giving up a lot of touchdowns to them. They're not giving up like an exorbitant amount or number of yards to these running backs. So I don't know, that game I feel like gave like a lot of false hope to a lot of Cowboys fans. And then, we went into that game against New Orleans and like Derek Carr just carved us up. Raheed Shaheed and Kamara going off for 4 touchdowns is insane. And honestly, like we should absolutely be embarrassed by that game. The last 2 home games, I think they had said we were like blown out, we gave up 44 in this last game. I think we gave up 48 to Green Bay in the last home game, which was the playoff game last season. But yeah, like I was saying, like as much as I kind of want to blame Dak Prescott and like I wish he would have gotten CeeDee Lamb involved more and just his garbage line, stat line and everything, I'm sure probably looked pretty good for fantasy football minus the 2 interceptions. The Dallas defense also just didn't show up last week. 1 sack, 2 tackles for loss, 1 QB hit, 3 passes deflected. I don't even necessarily think this is because like New Orleans offense is so crazy good. I don't know. But it's definitely got me worried, and it's definitely put me like right back in my seat that I was in before the season started for the Cowboys. I do not think this is going to be a good year for the Cowboys, and it's honestly the first time in as long as I can remember, to be honest, that I was not like pretty hyped about, the start of a football season for the Cowboys going forward. This Cowboys season feels very dire. I don't know, man. I don't feel like, and I mean, maybe I could be wrong. I'm just speculating and everything, but it doesn't necessarily feel like there's a whole lot of team chemistry. It doesn't necessarily feel like there's a whole lot of like motivation or drive. It felt like the wind was taken out of our sails very, very early in that game against New Orleans, and we were at home. So I don't know if we have like the grit or the stick-to-itiveness or the ability to kind of face the adversity of like, playing from down and coming back. This Cowboys team just feels very sad to me, and I hate it because I'm absolutely dreading the rest of the season. Just feeling like we're gonna be in third place over like the Giants, and then yeah, I don't know. We'll see what happens. The season's still very young. We'll talk a little bit of fantasy football here in just a second. I kind of wanted to share with you guys the Peak One League and how it's been going so far through the first couple of weeks. Not sure if Ross shared it with everybody on the Roscoe Fantasy Show, but check him out on Tuesdays if you're seeking some waiver wire advice, some ad drop advice. Ross takes care of all that. He looks into all that, so check him out Tuesday nights here on Peak One. The big thing I ultimately wanted to talk about. I'll try not to talk about it for too long because I know I can probably get. I mean, I can get pretty long-winded about things anyway. But Tua Tagovailoa and his concussion, his third concussion in 3 years. Tuesday, Tua was placed on IR. For those that missed it, I feel like everybody's probably seen it up to this point. In the third quarter, Tua scrambled, kind of lowered his shoulder, and made contact with Damar Hamlin. After I'm not sure if it was him hitting his head into Hamlin's like shoulder or chest area, or if it was like when he fell back and he like smacked his head on the turf, which is how I feel like he got one of his previous concussions. But either way, he fell into a pretty obvious fencing position, is what it's called. It's basically when your arm kind of sticks out into an unnatural kind of spasm type position. Some people also kind of refer to the hands as like throwing up gang signs when they're kind of spasming and doing that kind of thing. It is a bad sign when your body does that. And the human body is pretty good at like making your body do things even when you kind of pass out or shut down, to try and help protect itself. That is not one of them. That is actually more like a glitch in your brain as it like tries to reset from being like smacked. And as far as I know, for every concussion you get, it can be easier to get another concussion. Now, to be completely clear here, I'm not exactly sure like why that is, or if that's even 100% true, or if it's because of like, bruising on the brain doesn't, fully heal, or how long it takes to heal and that kind of thing. But what I can tell you is that concussions, CTE, and the long-term effects on the brain from these head injuries is still very, very much unknown. When I moved to San Antonio, I started studying kinesiology. I took a fairly big interest in concussions. The movie Concussion was coming out at the time. I picked up the book League of Denial, which is based off of the documentary under the same name, which was kind of in turn became the movie Concussion, starring Will Smith as Dr. Omalu, who basically discovered CTE, like named it and everything. He is the one that discovered like the effects of concussions and blows to the head on football players specifically, and named it CTE, chronic traumatic encephalopathy. And he honestly, one of the things that I thought was very funny about it, was when he brought his information to the NFL, they denied it the same way that Big Tobacco denied their association with cancer and smoking. The way they denied the connection between smoking and cancer, the NFL did the exact same thing when confronted with research that showed football players suffer concussions, and that's bad. And the NFL was like, no, 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 no. And they spent years, probably. I mean, I know it was more than 10 years, and it was really just, I think, in the teens or something. So maybe like 10 years ago, that the NFL finally started to come out and accept the fact that they are tied in with concussions, and that playing football can give you concussions. The difficult position here now is, like, at what point does like the NFLPA or the NFL itself, or even the Miami Dolphins in this particular case, but whatever team it might be, when is it kind of their responsibility to basically step in and stop this from happening, or to protect a player kind of from themselves? Now, I'm always going to advocate for like player autonomy, human autonomy, for a person to be able to decide what they do and don't want to do with their body. I think adults are more than capable of you know making those decisions for themselves. um as I was kind of thinking about it and discussing it with some friends and family and everything, in my opinion, this isn't all that different than an adult choosing to smoke. You know what the consequences are, of those actions. You know what can happen, what could happen, what you know because you smoke and whatever. And if you choose to do that, that's your decision. You're an adult. You know what the health implications and risks are of those actions. I think that's your choice. You're allowed to make that decision. I think it's kind of the same thing here with Tua, as far as if he wants to choose to continue to play. I think that's up to him. But I think the flip side of that coin is that I don't think it's anyone else's responsibility to enable him if that's what he decides to do. If he chooses that he wants to continue to play football, I understand. But I can also understand if Miami decides, even from basically like a business standpoint, that they're just not willing to take that risk based on his health, based on, kind of his injury resume or his medical jacket, whatever you want to call it, up to that point. And they don't want to take that risk on him anymore. Now, I also understand that I'm sure the money in his contract plays a huge factor as far as like what Tua may or may not decide to do as far as his football career is concerned from here on out. I think he needs to make the best decision for him and his health and his family, his wife and his children. And like, just to talk about this a little bit, I believe, if I remember what I was reading correctly and everything, among other injuries over these seasons and everything, in 2020, Tua spent his final season with Bama. He got a concussion that year. He also had like a bad hip injury and something else, I believe. But he had a concussion in 2020 just before being drafted. In 2021, he only played a few games, dealing with a number of like other minor injuries, no concussions. In 2022, he had 2 concussions, including one that altered the NFL's concussion protocol. And then just this summer, Tua signs his new contract, $212.4 million, 4 years. And now he gets this concussion. Now, from what I was reading, Miami does have like an insurance policy out on Tua, an injury insurance policy that I suppose supposedly pays about $43 million. Sorry, we'll pay $49.3 million toward the $167 million in injury guarantees that Tua has. Now, apparently, he's already gotten $43 million of this. There's $124 million remaining. The insurance policy will offset that 124. So the $49 million that they would get from the insurance policy will help offset the $124 million remaining. The issue here is that Tua has to be medically retired and told basically by a doctor that he cannot return to the football field in order for the insurance payout to hit and in order for Tua to collect the remaining $124 million. If Tua chooses to retire on his own, he's not entitled to any of this $124 million. And from what I understand, I guess Miami could possibly come after him for the other $43 million that they've already paid him. I think that makes this a very sticky situation because this is a lot of money on the table. We're talking about $167 million. This is a lot of money. And I don't even if Tua was to, quit playing and try to move into a coaching role in the NFL somewhere, he would never see this kind of money. It's just not going to happen. And I genuinely think that that's going to play a huge role in what Tua ultimately decides to do with his career. But, as kind of part of this conversation that I was having, if you're an adult and you choose to smoke and everything and ultimately you end up getting lung cancer or emphysema or something like that, that's kind of the risks of the decisions that you were trying to make. And I feel like even after that point, when you've been diagnosed and you're sick and you have cancer or whatever it is, you can, as an adult, I think you can continue to choose to smoke if that's what you really want to do. I do not think it's anyone else's job or responsibility to enable you to do that. I don't think it's anybody's job to go get you cigarettes. I don't think it's anybody's job to take you to go get cigarettes. And I think it's basically the exact same situation here with Tua. If Tua decides that he wants to continue to play even after getting this concussion, so soon, the 3 and 3 years like this, and he decides that he wants to go back out there on the field and everything, that's fine. But I don't necessarily think that anyone has to enable him to do that. I don't think that Miami has to continue to let him play. I don't think the NFL or the NFLPA has to just stand by and watch him play. I think there's things that they could possibly do that would end his career, especially Miami, as far as just doing things from a business standpoint. I feel like they could decide to, end his contract for whatever reason, probably based on injuries, and, move on to someone else, draft a new quarterback, whatever it is that they decide to do. But, ultimately, with the way these concussions are happening to players and everything, I mean, I would almost argue that, players especially Tua should probably have their own insurance policy out on themselves in case things like this happen, And I mean, I hate to think of a potentially great football player like Tua, a first round draft pick, pretty talented. I think mixes very well with Mike McDaniel's offense, and they're doing some really cool things in Miami with Tua and the rest of that just fast offense. and you hate to see like a career be taken from a player because of injuries and that kind of thing. Andrew Luck comes to mind. Troy Aikman even retired, after just 10 years in the NFL, and he actually retired because of concussions. He got a bad concussion and called it. He was done after that. You hate to see greats go out in such a way, and I also understand that like so many people and so many players would obviously I feel like it's everybody's dream to obviously like get drafted number one overall, go win a Super Bowl, win multiple Super Bowls, and then like retire after winning, your, however many Super Bowls and retire on top. But like that just doesn't happen for a lot of guys. And unfortunately, sometimes like this is just how the story is going to end for a lot of guys. I think it's the healthiest decision for Tua to make, but it's definitely kind of up to him if he wants to continue to play or not. I just don't necessarily think it's up to him if he gets to continue to play. I think that's going to kind of come down to Miami and the rest of them. So we'll see what happens. He's obviously on IR right now, so we probably won't hear anything about it for a couple of weeks, other than more speculation as to what he should or shouldn't do based on, his health and, the decisions he should probably be making for, not only himself, but for his family as well. So we'll definitely keep an eye on that as well. Concussions it's pretty interesting to me, especially basically learning that, concussions are 20, maybe 30 years old. It's pretty new science. We don't know a lot about it. Excuse me. We don't know a lot about them at all and their long-term effects. The only way to actually study CTE on the brain is after death, and you have to like remove the brain and fix it and slice it and examine it under a microscope, and then you can kind of see like what some of the effects that concussions had. But we have no way of really seeing any of that stuff until post-mortem. So I would imagine, like most medical fields and stuff, the studies have been going on for about 20 years or so now, over the next 10 years, and that will continue to learn more, and hopefully we'll continue to learn ways to try and help players be a little more safe on the field. But I can tell you from experience, like when I was playing football in high school, we were taught to like lead with the crown of your head and drive through your opponent's chest and hit guys like that. They do not teach you to tackle that way anymore. Now it's definitely kind of a wrap up and drag them to the ground type situation. But yeah, I would definitely like to. I appreciate that the NFL continues to try and adapt and make the game safe and try to prevent concussions as much as possible. I think just the nature of the game, you're gonna have concussions and you're gonna have bad hits that injure guys in all kinds of ways. Whether it's a knee injury or broken bones or a concussion. I think it's just kind of the nature of the game, and we just kind of have to keep evaluating it and hopefully just getting a little bit better about keeping players safe. But in the meantime, I think there's a possibility that there may need to be a little bit of intervention on a player's behalf, based on kind of the health and everything of them. But I just want to take a couple of minutes here to share fantasy football standings and everything, and this is just our 10-man PPR league here for Peak 1. These are last week's matchups. As you can see, I lost to Landon. Apogee Grafix lost to Team Butt Punch. This is Cole. You guys may remember him from last year. Then Chris Robb, shout out to Chris. Hope he can make it back soon. He had a tough one against my buddy Kevin. Ashton managed to beat Adam, shut the pack up, and then Kenny had a rough one. He had some players. Actually, I think there were a couple of teams in the league that actually forgot to swap out some players. There were some injuries and things like that people forgot to bench or swap out and whatever. So here's our standings right now. Shout out to Roscoe and his Roscoe Fantasy Show. Check him out on Tuesdays. Currently number 1 right here at 2-0. Then Cole Butt Punch, also 2-0, and your man Neon Super Shrimp bringing up the third place spot. I had a really, really good game week 1. Scored a lot of points. I think if you're looking at it, I actually have the most points for at the moment, but Ross here has the lowest points against, which is always helpful when you're trying to win fantasy football. But still real early in the season. Next week's matchups, I believe I'm playing Ashton. So shout out to Ashton. We will see him on the battlefield throughout the week, starting tomorrow night. Then Apogee Grafix against my buddy Kevin. Team Butt Punch, Cole against Chris Robb. Adam at Shat the Pack app against number 1 Roscoe. And then Team Landon against Kenny. And I know Kenny's got to make a few more adjustments with his lineup and everything, but hopefully everybody kind of starts getting on the same page, and we can keep the competition going. At the very least, I know me personally, I'm trying to avoid that. We've got this really god awful, ugly medallion that we're gonna make our last place loser kind of wear for. It'll probably be like a month or something. We'll make them wear it and just have it on the shows and have some fun like that, whatever. But yeah, just kind of wanted to show you guys how that's going and having some fun with the fantasy footballs so far. Shout out to the couple of friends and everything that we managed to have fill in on our fantasy league. Yeah, that's the word I'm looking for. But definitely appreciate everybody for being here and for hanging out. Check us out at Peak One Sports on all social media platforms: YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, X, and TikTok. At Peak One Sports. Find us wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. Check out Roscoe's Fantasy Show on Tuesday nights. Check out The Lead Off on Saturday mornings with Ashton and Tony. And Friday Night Football on Friday nights. No Friday Night Football game this week. Got an off week, but coming back next week for Eagle Mountain again. And then I actually missed it last week, but the Gambler stream on Saturday nights, I'll be trying to bring that back on Saturday as well. So we'll see what happens. Man, I got this fly just right in my face, just flying right in my face. But yeah, we appreciate everybody hanging out. Thanks to you guys, and we'll see you back next week for more Sports Page. All right, thanks. Bye.